You're listening to the All Women On Demand podcast, a space that brings together inspiring women in tech to share their experiences, insights, and advice on the hottest topics in tech today.
Hi, everybody. My name is Susanna. Today we'll be talking with Anna. Anna, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, Susanna. I'm Anna. I'm an iOS developer at Novoda, and I do mentoring too for DevPass, which is a Brazilian community that helps juniors to go through their sprints.
All right, that sounds interesting. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that later on. So, in this podcast, we'll get to know what it's like to work with designers from a developer's point of view. We will understand a bit more about the work process and how handovers are done. So welcome, Anna, once again. So here we are all designers, so we are super curious to learn about your point of view. So tell us a little bit, how is it to work with designers? How is the workflow typically?
Well, generally, as a developer, workflow starts when we do the planning. Typically, the PO, which is the product owner, they came to us and tell us about the new features that they are trying to develop. In general, we will have some sketches or of the new features or sometimes even the final work. But essentially what we have, it's like the workflow, you know. We know how to go from one place to another and how we can develop these new features. Things like colors and sizes of buttons and things like that generally are not very important at this phase for us, because we want to understand really it's how we should present the data in the view and to the user and how to present it. You know? Not only what data, but to how to present it. Generally, we discussed how that will arrive to us and if it's possible to show these features. So the way that the product owner and the designer have imagined. Sometimes it's backend has to change things before we can go forward because it's very difficult and it's not so easier.
I was going precisely to ask you that. So early on, you get to understand a little bit how things will work. Does it happen that sometimes things are not possible to code, to develop, and then you need to discuss or to negotiate with the designer or the product manager? How does the team or the developer usually do this negotiation, let's say?
Well, it generally comes with problems from like backend says, I cannot deliver this kind of data or something like this, you know, or to do this, it will take me like 10 months. But if we do this way, which is generally a small change of how to present or how to send the data for us, I can do it in smaller time. And then it's a kind of negotiation and try to understand if we can show that data or if that data is even relevant to be there. And with this, we can work, no? And then sometimes it's the other way around. It's like the backend can deliver all the data, but we in the mobile part or the front end part, we can receive this, but to really show the data, we have to do a lot of trickies just to show the way you want to show it. And then we have to sometimes ask, can we do this in other ways or something like this? So we can negotiate. It's a lot about communication between the teams, no?
Yeah. And how deep is usually the involvement between developers and designers? Because we are talking here about collaboration since the beginning, right? So you get to know the intention, the ideas. You get to evaluate how things could be developed or not. If there's any impediment already, you can also point out. So tell a little bit about this collaboration between the developer and the designers.
Well, it all depends on being in different teams and they have different approaches, no? So, for instance, I was in a team that even when designers were making users research, they included us already because they had like an idea of what would be possible for them to research. And they involve us so we can see how the user already is thinking And then we can say to them immediately, no, probably this is not like a good idea, or maybe if he goes this way, we are not like possible for us to do. And the more earlier in the development of a feature we are involved, all of us involved, the best, because we can say if something is possible or not to do. Generally, it's possible. It's more difficult or less difficult to do.
Yeah, or it can take longer than expected. There's also something to consider. So that's really great advice to involve developers as early as possible. Also because it's a whole new perspective. So the more point of views you have over a problem or over a solution that is being proposed, the best, right?
Exactly.
So cool. That's great. So let's talk a little bit about the handover. So you were talking before about having the workflows to understand a little bit of the idea, but then it comes to a point where the screens or the flows are refined. So they are supposed to be the final ones that the developers have to work with. Can you tell us a little bit about the best practices that all designers should be doing when it comes to hand over the projects to developers?
In general, the best practice that there is like having like a design system. So a consistency between components that we can use, because this allows us to not waste a lot of time doing the same thing over and over again. We have a design system. We can use components, not even for us as developers, but also for the designers, because then they will use those components and it will be better for them too, no? And sometimes there are teams that don't have any of this, and it's difficult to repeat and repeat and repeat. Sometimes not having like a structure like this as the design system makes that different designers in the same company have little differences, and that is like creates a lot of chaos. So first of all, the design system for me, it's like a mandatory thing right now. I always try to have one if I can, or insisting that somebody creates that. And then definitely try to, when we finish our work, because we have to apply all the things that the designer does, we should definitely include the designer at the end of our development, so he can have a look, confirm that what he was expecting is what he's seeing or what we implemented. He should be able to give his okay of what we have done and created.
Very important. Very important point. So, okay, design. So the designer to check what was implemented, if it's according, because many times there could be something that missed the view of the developer, or maybe it's not working as thought, or maybe there's something that needs discussion, because it happens also sometimes that things are not exactly possible to implement it as designed. So this always needs, as we just talked before, negotiating and communicating and talking with the designer. Design system, super important. Anna, thanks for also bringing that. we do talk about design system also in the course, so that's great. It's super important, and the value of it's not just for the designer, the developer, is for the organization, okay? Because it will save you time and money, and that's precious. Okay, great.
And
yeah, go ahead.
Just a comment. Another best practice is to use the design guidance for iOS and Android. I'm more for mobile, because this accelerates the development process for us. Because if we are doing components that that we know and we generally use in these platforms, it's way easier than trying to inventing the wheel to do the same thing.
Yeah.
You know.
Excellent reminder. So there are different ways of designing for different platforms. When it comes to iOS, there are specific components that are system components, which means the developers don't need to code it from scratch, so they can just reuse it. And the good thing is users are used to it. They are familiar. So it's better indeed to use them. And we also have to think, if you are designing for Android, that is a little bit different. So always consider this, of course. Great reminder, Anna. Thank you for that. Is there any tip you would like to give junior designers when they start working and it's the first time that they will be working with a dev team? From your experience, how usually, or what do you think, or what would be a good advice or tip for somebody that is just starting and they have their first job in a startup or a scale up or some company?
First of all, I want to remind everybody that developers are not designers. And so we don't have that eye to precise everything and be super beautiful. And for us, if it works, it's good. So be a little bit tolerant, because sometimes we don't, it's more difficult for us to see some things or to change. And for us, make a slightly change to help us developer in less time. It's easier, no? And sometimes the flexibility for us to reduce the development time, it's huge if you could change or downsize the beauty of your design. You know what I mean? And be just prepared to be flexible, or at least listen to, because we don't want to have bad designs too, you know? If it's continue to have a good design, but with less things or with less clicks and with less things over there, maybe it's easier even for the user. And if your company where you are starting, they don't have the design system, start one. Don't just, oh my god, this doesn't have a design system. No, start you one. You go for it. Your developers will love you, because that will facilitate their lives a lot. Not only it will facilitate your life, it will facilitate our lives. So we will love you forever. Believe me.
That's great.
We will love you forever.
That's great, Anna. So the main highlights or the key takeaways we have is: involve your developers since the beginning. This is so important. Foster collaboration. Yeah, like always discuss things together, negotiate. This is the best way of working, and it will allow you to have the best product for sure. And also very important, design system, make use of it. If you don't have it, create one. All right, Anna, any other tip you want to give us before we end?
Just communicate a lot. Be friends with your designer. That's a very good way to communicate. After that, you can ask him everything. It will be easier.
All right.
So I try to be friends with my designer. So please be friends with your developer.
So, Anna, do you think it's important for a designer to know a little bit of code?
Well, I think it's not like necessary, but it won't be a bad thing. I think even that it would be really good, because then he will understand the process that we pass through to when we say we want to develop something, and it's hard and it's difficult and it's not so easy, you know, as we generally say.
Okay, so it's good. It's not mandatory, but if designers know a little bit of code, it will allow a little bit on also this communication and this negotiation that we are talking, because it's more perceived. And do you think that the other way around is important as well? Should designers educate a little bit developers on design principles, for example?
Yeah, I think that once again, it wouldn't hurt us to know what you are aiming for, or why do you want to do some things in a certain way, you know? If we understand them, it's easier for us to see the reason why it's there, you know? If we are ignorant, we don't understand why you insist so much in some part of the design, no? And that we think, oh, this could be like eliminated, and then it's like a super important part of the workflow, you know? The more we know, the better. So if you can do like the small lightning talks about how you develop your designs and things like this, and you include the developers, we are always open to learn more. At least I am. I always want to learn more. So I don't know. If you feel that your developers, that the teams that you are working with, they are open to that, just educate them, because you will benefit from that. Sure, definitely.
For sure. That's great as well. Like, for sure, when you put some effort in educating others about design, not only developers, the company, if and the long way, it will make your life easier and you'll be better understood and faster, etc. So also great advice, Anna. Thank you so much. We just reached the end of our podcast. I want to thank you once again for being here with us. Super valuable advice and great to hear your experience as well. Thank you so much, Anna.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for listening to the All Women On Demand podcast. We wish you great success in your tech journey.